So let's break this down really quickly. After the death of his father, he returns home. He became king. After he became king, the enemy attacked and threatened not only his home, but the entire world.
My son, it is your time.
Show me my respect and bow down.
You get to decide what kind of king you are going to be.
In a movie synopsis, that kind of sums up and gives you an idea of what the movie is going to be about, right? That draws you in to want to know more about the movie. How many of you know that also in your life, you're going to have a movie synopsis, right? Your life is a movie synopsis, and there's some pieces and parts of it that you can control, and there's some pieces and parts of it that you cannot control, right? So you have to learn how to adapt. So the backstory is everything that happened before the point. So what's the one thing that they tell us is the backstory in Black Panther? What's the first thing that happened?
His father died.
His father died. So part of the backstory is death. Okay? Now, was there anything else that was part of the backstory?
He had an enemy.
He had an enemy. Okay? Good. What else was part of the backstory?
He threatened his home and his world.
Okay? So he has to home and his world. Okay? Now, the backstory is all the things that happened to him. You understand? So what happened to him was the fact that his father was killed. What happened to him is that he had to return home to become king. What happened to him was the fact that there was an enemy that was after him and that was going to attack him. Or the plot is the purpose and the point of the movie. What are some things that become the plot? What's his purpose?
To come home and be king.
To be king. So to be king, as king, what does he have to do as king? What are some things that are roles and responsibilities of a king?
You gotta take care of his home.
Protection. So he becomes a protector, right? How does he become a protector? Does he just walk around in a regular suit and tie and have some nice dress shoes on? Nah, right? How does he become a protector?
By setting rules and by setting rules.
Okay.
And
So he
keep the
sets
enemies
rules.
away.
All right. How else does he become a protector? What's the one? Go ahead.
I mean, he puts on a suit, and
Put-
he just kills him. That's really what we're
All right. What's special about his suit?
It's made out like indestructible or something.
It's indestructible. So the suit that he puts on. So would you say his suit is kind of like armor, right? So the suit that he puts on is similar to armor, right? Energy, which allows him to take what the enemy is throwing against him and take that energy and use it back against him, right? Have you guys seen the preview? In the preview, he's on the hood of a car or the roof of a car, and he's taking fire from the enemy, right? But what happens when he's taking fire, his suit is taking that fire and turning it into kinetic energy, which he then turns around and uses to flip the enemy's car over, right? So he's taking what's meant to harm him and is now using it to be part of his protection. What else makes him king? Is he king because he was elected? No. Why was he king?
It was in his bloodline.
It was in his bloodline. So he's king because of his identity. His identity is what made him king. His bloodline is what made him king. He didn't have a choice but to be king, right? So we know that he's a king. And as a king, he's a protector. He set rules. He wears a suit of honor. And he's a king because it's part of his bloodline. What else is a part of the plot of the movie?
Fire.
There's what?
Fire.
He's a fighter, right? So as part of the plot, we learn that one of the things that he has to do is he has to fight. Now, as his character, he is well versed in multiple martial arts, right? So not just one. He's not just good at boxing. He's not just good at karate. He's not just good at taekwondo. He's good at multiple forms of martial arts. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's important to be well versed?
Because you gotta be you gotta know all of them because he's the king. And certain people don't know all of them.
Correct. So
only know one.
exactly. So it's great if you know multiple ways to defend yourself That means the enemy that comes to attack you might not know how to handle your offense because they might not be as well versed. So if you know how to protect yourself, if you know how to fight the right way, then that enemy that comes to attack you is going to be defeated, right? Because you're not just good at one thing, you're good at multiple things. So part of being a fighter is being smart and well versed. Okay, so that's good. So he's a saver. Okay, what are some ways that he would save people's lives?
Like jumping out of a runaway train or something. Like
Yeah, so he would enter into what's considered to be danger and pull somebody else out of that danger, right? So if you're saving someone, a lot of times, how many know if a lot of times when you're saving somebody, sometimes you have to get into that same dangerous situation to be able to pull somebody else out, right?
That's right.
But why did he do that? He did that going back to it because remember, this is all part of the plot. He did that because he was a king. He was a king because it was part of his bloodline. He was able to protect him because he wore a suit of armor. And he had certain rules that he lived his life by, which led him to believe and know that there's a certain way that he has to operate every single day that he walks on the earth. And ultimately, he was a protector.
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and count out. What's going on for the revolution will not be televised. That's some fun.
Is that the enemy that he's facing is not just coming after him or his home, but it's coming after everything. Okay? And it's that same way a lot of times with us. So now we've talked about Black Panther, right? We talked about the difference between the backstory and the plot. And what I want each of you to do is I want you to, in your own mind, think about your movie. Think about your movie that's going on right now, right? Because your life is a movie. Okay? And you have a backstory and you have a plot. The backstory are all the things that happened to you. Somebody hurt you. Somebody lied. Somebody betrayed you. Somebody didn't show up. Somebody wasn't there. All of those things are part of the backstory. That's all what happened to you. But the part of the plot is what you do about it, how you handle it, what then you now turn it into, right? Because how many of us know everybody successful has a backstory? You have to understand the difference between what is your backstory and what is your purpose or your plot. Because a lot of times people will try to use your backstory against you. Oh, you grew up this way. Oh, you came from this. Oh, you had this. You didn't have this. You talk like this. You walk like this. You wear these clothes. You look this way. You're male. You're female. You're old. You're young. You're so tall. You're short. They try to use all that backstory against you, right? But what do we have? We have the scripture and the Bible that is the same as it was yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So because we have that, we know how to be well versed, right? We know how to fight when that certain enemy comes at us or tries to give us information that we know is not a part of what? Our bloodline. Because who's a part of our bloodline? Jesus. So as believers, we have the best bloodline in the world, right? So we know that if somebody comes to us and tells us information trying to use our backstory against us, that's not part of our bloodline, right? Somebody might say, oh, well, your parents got separated or your parents got a divorce, so that means you're all messed up in the head. Well, that's part of my backstory. That ain't got nothing to do with my purpose, right? Because that was them. That's what happened with them. That doesn't mean that's what's destined for my life. That doesn't mean that's what I'm going to do. That doesn't mean that's what's going to happen for me, right? But I want to encourage you guys that each one of you is your own superhero in your own right, right? It might not feel like that today, but the more you start to think that way, the more you start to realize that just as it is in his bloodline, the same in yours. You are a king and a queen, right? That's part of your bloodline. No matter how far back we go, if we trace each and every one of our bloodlines, we would find that royalty in our heritage. So it's important that we remember that. It's also important that we remember that because guess what? Do you think when Black Panther showed up and he was just regular T'Challa, that he just showed up any kind of way? He couldn't, right? Why couldn't he? Why couldn't he just show up any kind of way?
He's a king.
Because he's still a king. Even if he's not being Black Panther, he's still a king. So even when he's not being a superhero, he's still a king. So he still has to walk and talk and carry himself a certain way. It's the same for all of you guys. That's why I call you young king and young queen, because it's the same thing for you guys. No matter whether you're in school, on the basketball court, on the volleyball court, on the football field, at your house, in church, it doesn't matter wherever you are. You still are a young king and a young queen no matter where you go. So when it's time for you to help somebody else, when it's time for you to be a fighter or a saver or put on your armor, you know how to do that. But when it's time for you to just chill, don't forget, you're still a young king or a young queen. So you still have to carry yourself a certain way, all right? So that's it. That's the end of the message. You guys got it? You got to say, I got it.